Welcome to the Man Man Sports Fan Podcast. I am your host, Phil Schultz, and I'm here with Slim Smitty and Fremdog Millionaire. How are you guys doing tonight? How are you feeling with catchers and pitchers reporting? First day of spring training.
An underrated day on the calendar year.
Can't wait. Looking forward to some spring training and seeing what we got in terms of a lot of these prospects coming up. And yeah, it's really, like Chris said, very underrated time here.
Who is your favorite catcher right now?
It's a good question, Phil.
Fantasy or otherwise?
I'm a very biased Brewer fan, and we just signed Gary Sanchez. So right now I'm going to ride the Gary Sanchez train just because I'm excited for him. What's that?
Oh, the Sanchez.
Sanchez. Oh, it's so good. I got to go with Adley. He's so fun to watch, and he's going to be an absolute stud.
Yeah, no doubt.
I love that guy. Cal Raleigh. I'm on the Cal Raleigh train, and he's sitting in fourth or fifth in the lineup, and he's just a masher, kind of an old school catcher that doesn't hit for average, but hits like potentially 35 home runs. So it's kind of fun. It's exciting. And today it is Valentine's Day, February 14th. What is your guys' opinion of this holiday that we are currently partaking
in? Well, my first question, Hallmark holiday, right? So I don't try to partake in Valentine's Day. It's worked out to this point in my marriage, so we're just going to kind of keep rolling that dice each year.
I'm right behind Chris. I was going to say my first question is what holiday? Don't really buy into the Hallmark deal and putting your money into flowers and candy and stuffed animals. I will say I did lose an 8th grade girlfriend over Valentine's Day, so it is important to some people. I must remember that. So if you're in 8th grade, watch out.
I mean, you have a bad memory associated with it. That could have something to do with you kind of wanting to reject this holiday. It's fine. It is manufactured. That's the thing. The wife loves Valentine's Day. Emily is obsessed with Valentine's Day. So she doesn't really want a lot from me. She kind of makes all the plans for it, but I am along for the ride. And it's cool. I'm down to do it for the wife. I don't know if I'd roll the dice like you, Chris. Roll the dice is tough, but you got to do what you got to do. And Hallmark Channel is on too much in my household, so probably not enough in yours, or maybe the right amount in yours, probably. Well, that's awesome. Hope you guys are celebrating or not celebrating. If you don't have a significant other's rip, I'm sorry, but that's okay because Valentine's Day is, it's fine. We should talk sports because that's what this is about. It's in the name. Badger basketball last night. Last time we actually met, 3 more games have passed. It hasn't been a great period in Bucky basketball history. Lost to Michigan on the road by 4. Got destroyed by Rutgers on the road. Pretty tough game. Played Ohio State at home. Kind of a bounce back. Ended up winning by 8. I think it was 62-54. Kind of an ugly last 3-4 minutes. A lot of missed layups. 3-pointers weren't going in for Bucky. Nobody's really scoring. It felt like the last 4 minutes. What do you guys think of the game? Who stood out to you? What do you take from it?
I'm really curious to hear what you think, Chris.
Yeah, so as I was telling Phil offline here, there's kind of a nervous energy vibe at the Kohl Center last night, which it makes sense. It's truly a must-win game. Uh, what I realized watching the game last night is that this team is going to go when Chucky Hepburn goes. And last night, although again, he's not putting up a ton of points. We talked about this on the podcast, but he did absolutely everything for this team. I think his stat line, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it was like 9 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, or something like that, but no turnovers. And his defense is just awesome. I mean, he was really all up on Bruce Thornton last night and just wouldn't let him get going. So it just made me think that his energy is what the players fuel off of. Like you said, Phil, they didn't shoot that well. They haven't shot that well for a while. And the trend of them not being able to shoot well from the three still concerns me. I still think that's going to be their out in March, is a game where they only hit 3 to 5 3-pointers. But defensively, they looked better. We got good Steven Crowell last night. Here in Madison, on the post game show, they call him the USS Crowell. So I'm we got the good aircraft carrier last night. But yeah, it's kind of an ugly old school Big Ten basketball game. It's not the type of game we've won a lot this year or played a lot. So I'm not sure if this is going to lead to anything like in terms of a streak, but it was just nice to get in the W column.
Yeah, I was looking to see your reaction being there live, Chris. Yeah, I really was hoping that Bucky would, put away Ohio State here earlier in that second half. Didn't see that happen. I think we were asking about worry or, kind of on the panic meter where we're at with the Badgers. Starting to not believe that this team is quite as good as I thought they were. 4-game losing streak, and now just not seeing that confidence, just not seeing that it factor in a team that maybe can, bury a pretty average Ohio State team here. Ohio State team that was not getting it going, was not, shooting the ball that well themselves early in the game, getting their star players going. So, yeah, I think it's typical Badger basketball, kind of grinding it out, but I think not quite that special elite team that we were maybe hoping for, I think maybe a few weeks ago.
But yeah, and we don't really know why that happened. I mean, we were talking offline. It's like the offense isn't flowing. Storr played probably his least aggressive game last night that I've seen from him. Granted, he did some really good things. I thought he made some good decisions. He even played some better defense. But even Klesmit, I mean, he's obviously cold now. He missed a bunch of threes, some open, some, he was just on fire for so long there. Or maybe it was, 5-6 games. But even still, he was putting 8-9, and he missed a free throw last night too. And so, yeah, you just kind of sense a loss of confidence, a loss of flow in the offense. Maybe players thinking too much, because even still, they're turning the ball over too much, making decisions that don't make a lot of sense. And they weren't doing that a month ago. So whether it's fatigue, you had Kamari McGee get injured, which he wasn't playing that many minutes anyway. Blackwell obviously was injured the last 2 games. It's hard to know what this team is going to be, considering that they did look so good, where 80 points felt like nothing. And now getting to 80 feels like it's not going to happen. Our next 4 games are kind of interesting. We play at Iowa on Saturday. Then we play Maryland at home, at Indiana, Illinois at home. What's interesting about all 4 of those games, we could win all 4 of those games. How do you see, I guess, Bucky coming up here at Iowa and then with the remaining, or I guess the next 3 games? How do you guys see that playing out?
Yeah, so I think you nailed a lot of the things that's going through my mind, Phil. I think of the injuries, which, they're both point guards. So Chucky's been playing, 38 to 40 minutes a game lately, which is unsustainable. But to me, the two keys are, number one, the bench needs to play better in general. Like I said, we have the two guys out, but we're getting no production from the bench right now. And I think some of that's just like we're kind of at that point of the season, the lull. And like you said a few weeks ago, Phil, like in the guard era, we seem to always have one of these each year. So I'm hoping that's sort of what it is. But two, it's we gotta possess the ball better. Like every game, I swear by halftime we have 10 turnovers, and I don't know why that is. But what's interesting is in the second half we usually have like we end the game with 12. So it's just taking care of the ball better early, because when like we've played some bad teams that have beat us recently, and it's because we've let them stay in the game. And those turnovers give you confidence. Like I think the Rutgers game, I mean, the score didn't really show how the game was, but they got up 9-0, and it just felt like we were never going to get back there. And we couldn't. So to me, it's taking care of the ball. It's hitting three consistently. I did like what I saw defensively last night. I hope that can continue. And like just going off an AJ Storr comment, he's so much better when he's not shooting threes. Like when he's attacking, when he's facilitating. I hope that's a trend we continue to see moving forward too.
Yeah, I think this Badger team has shown us that I don't think there is any easy W out there. Playing Iowa, I think they always compete with us very well. Maryland, maybe winnable game there, but Illinois looks hot. Illinois looks like a very good team. Going to be probably a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. So Badgers definitely have their work cut out for them right now. I think Chris hit on a lot of the key points of where this team needs to improve and look to do well. Just looking at their last game though, you just kind of see in some of these moments people are hesitant to shoot. You don't know who wants to actually attack or who wants to score. And so I think this team is in a bit of a identity crisis right now, trying to figure out what's their MO. You're heading into March. I don't think you want to be going into March questioning are we are we looking to shoot the three, attack the hoop? Are we questioning ourselves in late game situations? So I think this team really needs to figure that out and figure that out really quickly, or we're going to be, I think, looking at a pretty frustrating March.
So the next 4 games, what's our record?
2-2.
Yeah, Chris actually stole what I was going to say. 2-2. I think that's what's coming to mind for me.
I'm going to go optimistic, and I'm going to say 3-1 because I don't think we've shot well for 6 halves of basketball. So I'm going to hope that the 3 ball starts to come, and maybe it's somebody like Connor Essegian, who will end up playing 20, 25 minutes. Because I'm trying to think of what the highest he's gotten to. Is it 15 this year?
Probably right around there.
Okay. I mean, he's the one that I think every time he's in there now, our team has a spark. That is the one I think, plus the this entire stretch here, is that when he gets playing time, he seems to make the right decisions, and he plays pretty good defense. So I'm curious why he's actually not getting more playing time, considering that we've just a little bit stagnant offensively and all that. But any last thoughts before we move here?
I'm just curious what you guys think. So has your ceiling changed for this team? Like, are they a second weekend team, or like do we trust this team to win the first 2 games in the tournament? Like, what is their seed even going to be? I'm just very curious in my mind.
Yeah, I think if you'd asked me that a few weeks ago, I was like, okay, this team could be a even a 3 or I think a 4-seeded team. I think now you're looking all the way down, probably even to 6 to. I would hope we get at least a 7 maybe right now. But yeah, maybe even a 5 and play maybe a tough 12. So right now I hate to be a pessimistic here for Badger Nation, but I'm hopefully make it through the first game. This is just a team where I don't see the confidence that maybe we saw a few weeks ago and seeing a team that maybe is really questioning themselves in late game situations and not having that mojo, not having momentum, not clicking, like you said, Phil, not shooting the ball well. And basketball is a game of confidence. And if people are not confident and not ready to shoot the ball when given opportunities, I think that makes for a bad situation in clutch moments.
I mean, we still have 10 quad one wins. I think that's fourth in the nation. I don't think we have a bad loss technically. I'd be curious what the at Michigan, if that's considered a bad, maybe that's the one. But even still, I mean, on the road this year, teams aren't winning. Ranked teams are not beating non-ranked teams on the road. I think the winning percentage nationally is 43%. Last year it was 70. So I don't know. I mean, I am down right now on this team because of lack of confidence. We've also seen what they can do when clicking. And you think that spark or that mojo would come back. They probably need a big win here. Like if they beat Illinois at home, that's a big win. That could change the season. Yeah, I'd still say I still think we get to the second weekend, and I think we are a 4 or 5 seed. I don't know if we're going to drop that much. I don't think if we lose at Iowa this weekend, I don't think that crushes us. I don't think they're a bad team, but at the same time, we were thinking maybe a 2 seed. So to be now at a 4 or 5 it's definitely disappointing. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence. I mean, the thing here in Madison is people get uptight about Guard because he's never made the Sweet 16, and this feels like we're talking about his best shot. But we have to get healthy. I don't think if McGee and Blackwell's injuries linger that we're deep enough to make the Sweet 16. But I'm assuming both will make the recovery, and I think at that point we can get back into our groove and I'd probably put the ceiling at Sweet 16 now instead of maybe earlier. I thought maybe Elite 8 or Final 4 potentially.
We usually win the first game. We usually do. The second game, not always. But
yep.
So it'll be interesting. Let's move. Super Bowl happened on Sunday. I don't know how many times Taylor Swift was shown. I think the line was 10.5. And I want to say with overtime it went over, but I could be wrong. We saw some Usher halftime. That was beautiful. I think that was pretty good. I think people liked it. At least generally. I was so-so. It was fine. Chiefs beat the 49ers 25-22. I think most of Packer Nation rejoices. We all got it right because of Patrick Mahomes. It feels like he is the one that made all these plays. I mean, the Chiefs defense stood out in some ways. What was your reaction to the game? What do you think was the turning point of the game as you were watching?
I think overall you could say definitely not one of the most exciting Super Bowls for maybe the first 2-3 quarters there. I think fourth quarter overtime, I think definitely made this a memorable Super Bowl, which is good, I think, for football history and whatnot. I think that first quarter had people wondering what they were watching for a little while. I think definitely I think Mahomes through and through, just making plays on the ground, making plays with his feet. I think those were huge plays. I mean, that 4th and 1 they have, there you think like, okay, maybe this is it here. And once again, Mahomes comes up big. So I think pivotal plays that were made were on the KC defense. Though I think San Fran had opportunities to really go ahead to drive the ball down the field and just could not get it done. I'm thinking before end of regulation, big third down, Steve Spagnuolo blitzing Purdy not being able to have any sort of check down, whatnot, makes a throw that's incomplete. And then even on that last drive there that San Fran had, I believe the receiver's open, beats his guy, but Chris Jones comes through and Purdy is throwing it deep over the receiver. So I think Casey's D is really responsible for, I think, a many turning points in this game. I think where San Fran could have gone down and gotten up by much more, or potentially won the game. So, but yeah, I think many people will point to Mahomes and point to his performances in the late game, but I don't think they get it done without the D. I think we've talked about Casey's D being underrated, not getting the accolades they deserve. Yeah, definitely exciting Super Bowl, and I enjoyed the halftime show. I thought it was fun. I don't know about you guys, but it brought me back to some middle school days.
Yeah, Little John, man, didn't see it coming.
Yeah. On the rollerblades, bringing it out.
Were you guys afraid they were gonna fall?
Yeah, kind of.
I thought it might happen. Just like some freak thing, a little loose rock on the stage somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree with Frem. Like we were trending towards a Patriots-Rams Super Bowl where just nothing was happening. And it was interesting because it felt like a lot of games, and it felt like the opposite of all the 49er postseason games heading into this, where they should have probably been up more. Whereas the past, like there were times where I felt like they should have been down more. But they just couldn't get over the hump. And like Frem said, like credit to the KC defense. Debo and Kittle just never really got going in the game. And I thought that was huge. Even Ayuk was, I don't know what he ended up with, but he didn't feel like he did much either.
I think it was 3 for 40 something, 42 maybe.
So to me, that's a big difference. But turning point of the game was unfortunately something you can't really control. That ball going off of the 49ers' foot, fumbled, Chiefs get the ball, next play, touchdown. I mean, I feel like that changed the entire game, momentum. And then from there, Mahomes was just unstoppable. Anytime he needed to make a big play, he did, like with his feet or with his arm. And when he gets any sort of confidence, he's absolutely unstoppable. Before that point, he didn't really have it, so he was inconsistent. And I think without that play, the 49ers probably win the game. But it was a fun game. I'm glad it went to overtime because it felt like it finally got into its groove as a football game. And like Frem said, Kansas City just made that one stop to hold the 49ers to a field goal. And from there, when you give Mahomes the ball in overtime and he has 4 downs to play with instead of 3, it felt like it was over. And it was nice to see Mecole Hardman score the game-winning touchdown. I just thought that was, from all the things that happened this year, just kind of interesting to see MVS and Hardman score the 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it was interesting that Shanahan decided to receive at the beginning of overtime and kind of explained it, saying, "Hey, we thought, hey, if we could tie here, then it's sudden death and we have the ball." Do you guys agree with the decision, or would you have kicked and deferred? In essence, getting the ball second, knowing exactly what you need to get, whether it's a field goal or touchdown and a 2-point conversion or whatever.
I would have kicked because then I know exactly what I need to do. So San Fran scores a 3, and like I said, KC basically knows they get 4 downs every single time, and to me, that's an advantage. You can't play for the second round of overtime. I just think that's the chances of it still being tied are, I don't know what the percentage is, but it just doesn't feel like that's the swing to take the ball.
I think just broadly, Chris is right. So that's, I think, the correct strategy that should have been picked by Shanahan. I think, though, from hearing all the post-game interviews from the players, and even, if you listen to Tony Romo, I mean, I, as a fan, did not understand there's a second quarter of overtime. On that last play, I think people were blaming Tony Romo for his commentary because he was, Jim Nantz is trying to set up maybe the last play of this game here that's going to be remembered forever. And Tony Romo is still explaining the overtime rules because as a fan, you're like, why aren't they calling a timeout? The clock is ticking down here. And so if you didn't understand that overtime would have continued into a second quarter. And so, yeah, it would have definitely made sense to kick off. However, the 49ers players in the post-game interview had said they did not realize that those rules existed. And so I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if those are just, players that didn't know what was going on, et cetera. But then, KC had been, their players were saying, yeah, we've covered this throughout the playoffs. We've talked about the rule changes, et cetera. So I think that's just a nuance. And I don't know if even the average fan was even used to those rules and thinking through that strategy. I think most are just thinking of, oh, get the ball first. If you score a touchdown, you win, game over. So I do think there's just a nuance to it. And I even Shanahan, I think, was pressed on that. And I don't think he even knew how to answer in the post game. So it was pretty interesting reflecting on that.
Well, I don't really know if the 49ers players needed to know. I don't, because on the same level, like, you just need to keep playing defense. You know what I mean? Whether the time runs out or not. I was like you, though. I was like, I don't think this matters. But because of the regulation rules where you tie at the end of the regulation, it's like, okay, or whoever wins, So I don't know. It makes me think I don't really like the change in the playoffs. Maybe that's just me. It's based off one game with Allen and Mahomes. I understand why they did it. I'm on the fence if I like it. But I think with Shanahan, it just feels like, he overthinks what he does in these big moments. And I'm not even just thinking of the overtime stuff. I'm thinking like, give McCaffrey the ball more. Like, I don't know why they're not running it more. He should, in a game that goes to overtime and it goes a full period of overtime, he has 22 carries. And to me, it's not like he had some, tackles for, some gains but were 0 or not a lot, but he was breaking some decent runs, 6, 7, 8, 9 yards. I don't understand it, and it's not that I think Purdy's a bad quarterback. I actually think Purdy played a really, really good game. Purdy, I thought, actually showed his true colors. I actually think like he stepped up in the moment. I think he made the right decisions almost every time. The Chiefs defense did a really good job against him. I just don't understand what Shanahan was doing, especially third, fourth quarter. And like Chris is right. Like, I think the turning point is the muff punt, but it's still just 10-6. It's not insurmountable at that point. Why do you think, I guess, why do you think the 49ers lost on the 49ers end? Right? We could get praise to Mahomes, praise to the Chiefs defense. Why ultimately did the 49ers lose?
I will just highlight, I think there was some really bad luck. Moody missed that extra point. I think many will say that was a pretty clear turning point in the game of like, you miss that extra point, it's a 3-point game. So now, KC drives down late in the game, they only need a field goal. So who knows if Moody makes that extra point. I think Jay Feely was analyzing that, and just the blocking was good enough. Just like, Moody kicked the ball too low. Like, he just kicked the ball too low, and that's why it was blocked. He needed to kick the ball higher. And then I think the other one, which who knows, the butterfly effect of this, but Dre Greenlaw tears his ACL on the sidelines, like coming off, coming back onto the field. And so who knows if Dre Greenlaw, one of their star linebackers, is playing the majority of that game, if what impact that has. So there was some really bad luck, I think, for San Fran. I'll just say, like, likely you could say it wasn't meant to be in the grand scheme of it all. I think you're right, Phil, though. I think when KC was moving the ball well, McCaffrey had it, you're, doing an end around to Debo. I think play design is a huge thing. You can just look at KC as the gold standard. They put their players in favorable positions. They put Mahomes in favorable positions. In some of those crucial moments, they're just making Purdy drop back and throw the ball into pressure. Like, there's no like creative design, like no one's in the flat. There's no maybe like different wrinkle they throw at them to throw the defense off. You see KC, they're always in motion. There's a lot of this like, read option. There's like multiple options that they can go to, playing to Mahomes' strengths. So I think just play design. I mean, I think Shanahan is a good play caller, but in those crucial moments, they did not have anything that really was easy or was even favorable, I think, for Purdy. Purdy just had to drop back and deal with a KC defender in his face and try to make a throw. So I think that's what I would say. A lot of bad luck, but also just some really, really poor play design in some crucial moments.
Yeah, I would say the big thing, I mean, the McCaffrey thing was super weird to me too, because I'm pretty sure the first drive out of halftime, they didn't give him the ball at all. Which is just like when you have someone that good that gets better as the game goes on, it just feels like a miss. But to me, the difference in the game was third down. Like the 49ers just couldn't finish drives. I felt like they were able to move the ball pretty decently. I would imagine they had more first downs in regulation than Kansas City, but in big moments they couldn't finish drives. And when you have to settle for that many field goals, eventually like the Chiefs were kind of in the same boat too. They weren't finishing drives, but eventually Mahomes is going to, and it ended up happening. And it was like I put on here. Mahomes is just inevitable. Like he wants the moment, and he got it and finished the one drive that mattered most.
It is weird how, I mean, Mahomes is definitely, I mean, he's already a Hall of Famer. He's 28, you know. He's won 3 Super Bowls. He's been to 4. I mean, obviously the quarterback difference, it matters so much. Well, I thought the 49ers defense finally came to play in a game. You know, I mean, they really, against the Lions and the Packers, they didn't look even near as good as they did in Super Bowl. I actually think Wilkes is just not as good of a defensive coordinator as DeMeco Ryans or Robert Saleh. And granted, their secondary wasn't as good, but there's a couple times, and I think even the broadcasters kind of brought it up, Nance and Romo, where they're like, why are you playing that particular coverage here against Mahomes? Why are you doing this here? And I kind of agree. You know, I mean, as, you know, Kelsey's getting wide open for a 30-yard pass on a mesh route, you know, where he kind of crosses, you know, 2 guys cross at the same time. Why are you blitzing Mahomes on a pretty crucial 3rd down, or I think it's even maybe 4th down, where he hits Rashee Rice because he's on 1-1 coverage? You know, there's just a couple things there. I want to bring it back to the Chiefs, though. Are they a dynasty?
Are you saying they win next season? Is that what you're, or just with these 3 that they have right now?
Yeah. Are they officially a dynasty now?
I think these 3 you have right now in this window. I think people will consider it just because of their success. I think Reed, Mahomes, Kelsey, that group winning over and over again. I think they will get the credit if it's all said and done, if they never win another one. Now, I think if they go back and win the 3rd one, I think that will put the stamp. Something that's not been done before, I believe. And so I think that would be pretty crucial if you could win the 3rd one. I don't think it happens, though, honestly. I know they're bragging right now that they're going to go back next year and win. I think Burrow's back next year. I think the landscape changes a bit. Who knows what happens? Offseason moves. I think the AFC is very loaded, and I think it'll be really difficult to get back there and win one again. Even though they are a very good team, I think they'll be in the mix, obviously, late in the playoffs again.
Yeah, I would say yes, they are a dynasty. This Super Bowl put them over the top. One thing I guess I realized, but didn't know until I heard it, is Mahomes has never not made the AFC Championship game. And so, like, when you've won 3 Super Bowls and you have that streak going too, I mean, I would have a hard time not looking back on this stretch, even if it ended right now. Let's say Mahomes never plays again. I think we look back at this as a dynasty run. I mean, getting 3 in 5 years, consistently making the AFC Championship game. I would have a hard time arguing against it.
Yeah, I think they are too. It's just it's such a different trajectory than Brady, because Brady won his first couple because of the defense. I think you can make the argument it's like gone in reverse, where like Mahomes made a couple plays in those Super Bowls earlier that he needed to win, and this one, it was almost like the defense picked up in such a way that they hadn't before, and then almost again allowed Mahomes to make those like crucial last couple of drives. Which, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to even think back to Brady's first 3, exactly what it looked like. But I just remember their defense was so good with Belichick. They are going to have to pay L'Jarius Sneed. I'm assuming he should be the top corner paid. I bet he gets, there should be nobody above him. I think Jair right now is technically the highest paid. He's definitely the best one in the game, and I don't think it's close. So I think it's going to be tough. And Rodgers is going back to the Jets. Burrow with the Bengals. It feels like, it's going to be tough. And yet it felt like this was the year, to beat them because their offense wasn't as good. And then they just went off in the playoffs. So again, the fact that he's never not made the AFC Championship is pretty remarkable. That's just how good he is. It's exciting to watch. If it was been a different NFC team, I might have rooted for that NFC team instead of the Chiefs, but I just really don't like the 49ers, so I couldn't root for them. So I do want to talk about the commercials just a little bit. This is a Chris Smith special. The commercials, to you guys, are the commercials just are they getting worse? Are we just old? Is it both?
I think it might be both. Although I did see about, it felt like 10 Temu commercials. I don't shop on Temu, but they had a lot of commercials. I thought there was a couple funny ones. Mountain Dew, Baja Blast, Arnold and State Farm. I think there was a couple that I was like, okay, that's creative or it's funny, etc. Overall, not entirely impressed. I kind of started to fade away from commercials. Started to feel like, okay, I don't think these are that good this year. I can take my bathroom break now. So, not like other years where I felt like maybe I needed to sit around and watch and see what's coming up in between the plays.
Yeah, so the reason I asked this question is because I grapple with this, and I'm in the same boat with comedy movies. And I wonder, like, am I just getting older? So I think that everything when I was younger was just better. But I just remember, like friends said, I would never skip the commercials growing up. I just feel like you never knew what you were going to miss. And now I was the same, Frem. Like, I was locked in for the first couple commercial breaks, and then I was like, I just don't feel like I'm really missing anything here. And so, like, with comedy movies, it's the same thing. I feel like the best comedy movies were 90s, early 2000s, early 2010s. And then since then, I don't know. It might be a sign of getting old. And that's why I had to ask this question. And maybe I'm on an island, but they just don't hit it the same way that they used to.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are just getting older. I think you tend to do that. But also, we were in a period, especially with comedy movies, where it was by far like the golden era. So, I mean, you got to think old school for what they originally did. And it feels like it just went from there, I don't know. I was talking to people. I was kind of listening. I like the Agent State Farm. That was good. With Arnold. That was good. Let's move. We heard Usher. We also saw what I thought was CeeLo Green, but that was not. It was Jermaine Dupri? Something. We saw some Lil Jon, unexpectedly. Some Alicia Keys. She was great.
Yeah, it was great.
It is interesting how we get all these cameos. What's also interesting is they don't get really paid that much at all, which is like really fascinating to me, considering how much goes into the performance. But like, it's all the exposure and all that.
Yeah.
If you had to choose next year's halftime artist or band, who would you choose?
I see Frem contemplating, so I'll jump in. I think it should be Drake. I think Drake would be awesome, and I think who he would put around him as a supporting cast would be next level. So that's my gut reaction. I think Drake would be pretty sick.
I thought you were going to say the format. A little disappointed.
Just a bunch of emo bands. Yeah.
Frem?
Yeah. I think it'd be fun to see something a little more different, even like some country artists coming together, something just a little different. I saw a headline for Beyonce releasing her country album right now, so I think it'd be kind of fun to just see like something different. I don't know, everyone loves like Luke Combs, yeah, Morgan Wallen, that crew. I think it'd be fun to see something different. On cue, Taylor Swift, I think, would be a very timely act at the Super Bowl. I think she's been asked many times to do it. I think they would bust, the roof on Super Bowl ratings if she performed, without any doubt. So, if they want to go big, I think it's rallying the world, the universe of Swifties, I think.
Bring all the Swifties together. I listen to a lot of weird music, so this is kind of hard for me to answer because I'm just looking through my artists right now. I think the one that I really like, but I like alternative rock. So I think of like Arcade Fire. And I'm like, Arcade Fire's awesome. Do other people think that's awesome though? But that's the thing. The Weeknd was there.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who that was. But that's another sign of getting old. So let's move from this. We have a new segment called Around the World of Sports. Right? So we've been talking a lot of football, a lot of men's college basketball, mostly Badgers, which Matty G, shout out to you. He feels informed from us. I don't know if he told you this, but he's like, I know nothing about the Badgers, but because of you guys, I feel very much informed. So that's cool. But we wanted to talk about things that we're excited about in sports, that we're thinking about. And if you want to latch on, cool. If you're like, I don't really like this segment. I don't like this sport. I don't even think it's a sport. Chris will talk about one in a second. Then yeah, that's cool too. So we'll start with Chris. Chris, tell us about your wide world of sports.
Yeah, so I want to talk about NASCAR, and for anyone that knows me, knows that this is a deep-rooted passion of mine, forever, as long as I've watched sports. NASCAR is right at the top of the list. We are at a crucial point of the season. We have the Daytona 500 on Sunday, which is also named the Super Bowl of NASCAR racing because it is the biggest race of the year, and it's ironically the first race of the year. But NASCAR's in a really interesting spot right now. And I don't know how many people follow from afar, but there's a lot of heavy hitters in NASCAR in terms of ownership. Michael Jordan owns a team currently, and is very prominent at races. In fact, I think he was at like 8 of the last 10 races last year because his drivers were doing really well. Pitbull owns a team. There's just a lot of good things happening that I think from the outside perspective you probably wouldn't know. And they're selling out a lot of races too, which they kind of went through a stretch where they weren't drawing the attendance. So it's actually ascending back, which is pretty cool. But this season will be pretty interesting because there is a guy named Denny Hamlin, who I don't know if you guys have heard with him. He's the one that partners with Michael Jordan. But he's like that one to compare him to, like Dan Marino. It's like the best driver that's never won a championship. So that's a storyline that we're going to follow this year. And like, it's just, I don't know if either of you follow, but it's kind of like a soap opera in a way, where there's like individual storylines that happen within each week that you can follow through the season. There's a lot of rivalries that come and go. But it's an exciting time of year, and the season goes literally from now until mid-November with like 2 weeks off. So it's something if you ever want to catch up on with. I think it's pretty cool. Netflix just came out with a new show called NASCAR Full Speed. They essentially followed a lot of the key drivers through the playoffs last year and released a 5-episode series. It's super good, even if you don't like NASCAR. Like it's just really well done. So if you're looking for your door in, this is your opportunity to maybe watch a show, latch onto a driver, and follow along this year. Because I get it, I get the turning left thing, but there's a lot more that goes into it that people don't know. For example, like the pit crews, they're all former like college and pro athletes that are coming back and doing all that. Like it's the intricacies of the sport. Um, I think would interest people if they got to know it a little bit more. So I wanted to give a little shout out to NASCAR, starting back this Sunday, starting back with the biggest race, and um, even if you're a casual fan, it's a good one to watch because anything can happen. Anyone can crash at any time. It's a good way to start the year. So shout out to the NASCAR world.
I feel like I just need to go to a race. I need to go to a race and experience it. Then I think I probably would like it, or I'd be drawn to it in some way.
So
you were around cars your whole life,
Yeah, and I don't even love cars specifically, like the ins and outs of cars. But I will agree to that. I think going to a race live is the best live sporting event you can go to. Like I've been to, I feel like pretty much any live sporting event in some capacity. NASCAR by far blows it away in terms of like the entertainment value, the tailgating, the partying. Like it is just it's like a community of people coming together. Some of them camp for like a week on end. Like they all have campgrounds attached to it. It's a really cool experience if you've never done it.
It does make me think of the show Trailer Park Boys, and I bet it's not redneck like that, but that's where my head goes.
I mean, there's some of that.
Which I would actually want if I went. I'll talk about what I want to talk about. I watch a lot of English Premier League football. I'm going to call it football. I'm not going to say soccer. It's latched on more in the United States, which is awesome. Our U.S. national team is kind of in a golden era. But the EPL is it's so fun to watch. And I know people say, a 0-0 game or it was 1-0, it's boring. Man, let me tell you, the more you get into it, the more you buy into a team, the more awesome moments you have as a fan, where it's just euphoria. Like you beat this big team, or you score this amazing goal in the 95th minute, or something crazy happens, and man, you feel kind of the weight of it. And then you have these lows that are just horrible, where you're how did we lose to this team? Or we look so bad. And I'm a Chelsea fan, which there's a lot of people that hate Chelsea because they spend a lot of money, and it's not unfair. I understand the hatred. But we spend a lot of money, and we're mid-table right now, which means that we're mid in the standings, 10th or something. And yeah, it's been a low season. I felt the lowness of it. But then there's been these moments of hope. All that to say, it's a really good league. It's super physical. It's super fast. People do flop in soccer. There's a strategy to it. I understand why that bothers people. I think we're seeing more of that in basketball. We're seeing that more in football. I mean, people are starting to flop in almost all sports now because they realize there's an advantage. And I feel I don't know, that should make soccer almost a little bit more accessible for people that maybe watched that and didn't like it. But there's 14 games left in the EPL season. It's called match days, right? So they're at match day. They just finished 24 of 38. They play each team twice, one home, one away. There's 20 people or 20 teams in the league. The top or the bottom three get relegated. And so there's a kind of a relegation battle going on, which really heats up at the end of the year. And then the top four of the who end up in the league, they play in this European tournament called the Champions League, which if you have Paramount Plus or or even some USA, I think you've maybe seen some games, you maybe heard the song, right? With a Heineken bottle that shows up right next to it. But there is something really, it's almost like the Super Bowl. The Champions League is the Super Bowl or the playoffs of the NFL. It is really fun to watch. I would say give it a chance. If you're I just don't like soccer, I don't understand it. watch a game between two of the big clubs, which is there's like a big six. It's like City, United, Liverpool, Chelsea. There's more coming in there. Arsenal. But watch a game between two of the big six or the top four teams, top six teams, because you'll see how good the game actually is, and you'll see how intense it is. Anyway, I just want to throw a plug because I feel like a lot of our audience probably doesn't watch, right? Or maybe has a team or, has watched some, but, not really fully in. And if you get fully in, one, you don't realize how many games there are. But two, it's like, man, it really is fun to watch and fun to follow. Chris was an Everton fan. Are you still?
So when I visited the Chelsea Stadium a couple summers ago, I flipped to Chelsea. You'll be happy about this. Because that was the one stadium I've been to now, and I got the whole history of Chelsea, and it was amazing. Got to see their Hall of Fame and do it all, be on the field. So yeah, it was a natural.
I forgot you did that. I totally forgot that. Well, praise God. That's amazing. Frem, do you have a team? Have you watched?
Yeah, I think mine is maybe the easiest to pick up. Maybe just transitioning a gender here. I think women's basketball is in the golden era. I think you've seen this with some UConn teams. You could argue maybe a decade or so ago and whatnot, but I think right now is when you should show up and watch. I think the college women's basketball game is getting to, I think, even such an elite level right now. You have high scoring games in the 80s, 90s, 100s, a lot of 3-point shooting. I think it's mimicking the men's game quite a bit that way. You have Caitlin Clark leading the high, kind of leading, is just kind of this highlight of the league right now. I think 8 points away from being the all-time leading scorer in women's basketball. You got some other standouts like Juju Watkins. You got Angel Reese, Paige Buckers. The list goes on and on. You have, I think, great pedigree. These big matchups: South Carolina, Stanford. The list goes on and on. Caitlin Clark in Iowa now. Obviously, UConn is always a contender in there. So I think this is a really special era, and I've been talking, I know, with another one of my good friends of just how the game is selling itself right now. I think the NIL money is there for women to make good money and stay in college right now. The WNBA really hasn't been able to figure out how, I think, to market the game well, and really how to, I think, like what you said, Chris, like what NASCAR has there with the storylines, the soap opera. I don't know that for professional, women's basketball. And I think the college game, I think you're starting to see these storylines, these very historical coaches, all these wins. And I think, there's a lot of drama that comes to it. And I think it's a really exciting to watch right along with March Madness, the men playing, everything. So I'd say pick up the women's game and watch it. I know the ratings were pretty big last year in the championship game. So I would expect a pretty exciting March for women as well here. And I think if you have a little girl in your life, you want her to watch basketball with you or get into the game of basketball, I think this is a great time to pick it up and watch right now. A lot of exciting things are happening. And maybe, I think this is the real big question, is can this group of women really change the professional scene? Because past generations have not really been able to do that. But I'm curious to see where this goes.
Well, Caitlin Clark is it feels like she is a must-watch kind of player. Like she's like Steph Curry in women's basketball. We haven't seen somebody like that, and I think she's been a big part of that whole revolution of women's game and the popularity. We just got to get Wisconsin Badgers got to get a little better.
I do.
Yeah, no doubt our local talent. I think Marquette is decent, but we have not been able to have a really good contender at home. I think that makes a big difference, right? So like if you're in the Stanford area, for example, right? Like you're probably really into women's basketball, just like UConn or something like that. Some of these other programs like Tennessee historically has been really good. LSU is now really good. So I think it does really make a difference when you have a successful program and drawing that interest for your area.
I think that's why volleyball took off.
Yeah.
I mean, volleyball took off in a lot of places, but especially in Wisconsin. All right, we are close to the end here. We want to go back in history a little bit, each of our personal lives. The last question that I want you guys to think of, and I know both of you have had many, so I'm not gonna, you don't need to say this is. There might just be one that pops out to you. What was the most memorable sporting accomplishment or event in your life that you did personally?
It's a great question.
You can
The one that jumps out for me, there are a lot. I mean, I played a lot of sports and was a part of a lot of really good teams through middle school, high school, even some intramural teams were pretty darn good. But the one that stands out for me when I was in high school, so I picked up disc golf when I was in middle school and got pretty good at it. And when I was in high school, I started to play tournaments more regularly. And I can't remember what year it was. I think it was my senior year of high school. I entered this really big tournament in Sheboygan and went there, played a division up from what I usually play. Went to the tournament, won the tournament, and also had a hole in one in that tournament. So they do something called an ace pool. So like everyone puts in $5 and they split it amongst all the people that get a hole in one. I was the only one to get one there, so I brought home like a couple $100 from that. So that was a huge moment for me. And then disc golf. That's another plug we'll have to make at some point. But that was just like peak disc golf for me, and a cool moment.
That is really cool. I think my accomplishment doesn't sound as quite as awesome as that of like that individual achievement like you're talking, Chris. Mine is more in that team sport and playing football, part of a powerhouse Division V football team, a lot of state championships and whatnot. So I make into level 4, game before state my senior year. Second team all conference, playing the offensive line. We played the triple option and I think the inverted wishbone. So you could be a small offensive lineman and wreak havoc. But it was really special. My sophomore season, we would go on to state and scored 21 points in the fourth quarter and won state my sophomore year. And then we were on the road to getting that done my senior year and just came up short. That game still stings to this day, no doubt. Really wanted to make it back to Camp Randall. Then that kind of like spurred the program on, and kind of the last decade we had I think they had they made it to 4 straight championships, state championships, and lost I think 3 in a row, and then finally won the last one. So shout out to the Lancaster Flying Arrows, powerhouse. I think now they're Division 6. I think the school's a little smaller, but some great times playing high school football, and nothing like Friday Night Lights, and it's really special.
What's the town? You said Lancaster?
Lancaster. Yep.
Okay. Where is that?
It's in the rolling hills of southwest Wisconsin. So like you're going down to Platteville. If you know where Platteville is, you'll know where Lancaster is. So
I only knew Platteville because their ratio at their college of men to women was like 4 men for every 1.
Pretty much.
Shout out to Daniel Von Ebers.
Yeah. Man, that's cool. Yeah, I think for me, there's like other random various moments that popped up. I think one that's like Chris, you know about this one. I was on Chris's intramural football team, and I mostly played ultimate frisbee in college, but I would play flag football with Chris. And it was we had really good teams, all with like people that could toss it, people that could catch it really well, people that are fast, people that played football. And then I was kind of always like added on, But when people look at me, they think like, that I'm not going to be like at all quick or fast. And they often, when I would guard a receiver, because I mostly just played defense, I didn't really want to play offense. I would be a cornerback, and they would always put their hand up against me. So there's these times, where, guy's going deep on me. He thinks he's going to just easily beat me, put his hand up. And I think in a couple games, I got like 2 interceptions. In fact, I don't think usually the guy wouldn't catch it on me. And that just always made me happy because I It's not like the biggest accomplishment, but it was something where I think based on the way that I looked, it's like, oh, he can't play. Or, oh, I'm just going to pick on this guy. He's the fat kid out there. And it's like, no, like I am weirdly athletic for how I look. In fact, I think that people have said that to me before. Like, you don't look athletic, but you are. And so all I have to say is, while I love Frisbee and I played a lot of basketball growing up, like for whatever reason that stuck out, Chris, when you asked me that. And what was our team name called again?
Real Men of Genius.
Yeah, Real Men of Genius. Sorry. But I think we lost the championship, right?
We lost to go to the championship. We had a guy that dropped an interception in the end zone.
That's right.
But I remember one of your interceptions on that team was like a game sealing interception. It was one of the playoff games, and it was a huge moment.
So I don't even remember that, but that's awesome. Yeah. That's great.
Deceptively fast. Those were the words.
I want to set this up when we get in person now, Phil. Chris is going to be QB, and I want to test your DB skills now.
I mean, you got some height on me, but we could do that.
Let's make this happen.
You have to wear the DeMarco Murray jersey, and I just bought a Micah Hyde jersey off Poshmark.
There you
go. So we'll have to do that.
I'll pull out the JP Lossman jersey or something.
Dude, Tulane. Is that right?
Let's make it happen.
Bills. Thank you so much for listening. We know this was slightly long, as it is as we go, but hopefully you feel caught up on Wisconsin Badgers, some Super Bowl talk, and around the wide world of sports. And we're just thankful for you. Find us on Twitter. What is our Twitter again, Chris?
Just @Man Sports Fan.
Very simple. Find us, subscribe, comment, ask questions. We'd like to answer some of those. But again, thank you for listening. We'll see you guys next week. Au revoir.